Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time it is when you hear this message, I pray that you're poised to receive, to accept, and to respond to words of wisdom. Ashe. If you talk to people today about the importance of wisdom and wealth, and you try to figure out which is more important, wisdom or wealth, you'll quickly come to the realization that for those of us here in the United States, we don't really we need to go through a few steps to make the distinction between uh, what actually wisdom is and what wealth is, because what I find is that we tend to confuse wisdom and knowledge. Okay, we think that a person who's knowledgeable is wise, and we tend to think that someone who has money is wealthy. And although you can't really have wisdom without knowledge, and you can't have wealth without money, they aren't the same. They aren't the same. And it's important that you know the distinction so that you can properly evaluate the relationship between wisdom and wealth, as well as the relationship between knowledge and money, right? So, real briefly, what I want to really emphasize is that none of these concepts and the practices associated with them are in opposition to one another. This is not a question of one versus the other. Money is against wisdom, or money is against knowledge, or wisdom is against knowledge. They aren't. This is not a heaven and hell thing, right? Um, and that's really the reason why I'm making this statement, because for us who have been brought up in the West, this concept of heaven and hell, good versus evil, us versus them, is so ingrained into our mental habits that we can't envision a world without diametric opposition. You got to create enemies in the same way that the colonizers created devils, right? They came into different places and they created devils that didn't exist, because that's the way their mind operates. It's the social psychology of the people. And so everything that they do is based on this idea of good versus evil. And so even as we're trying to refine ourselves and we're trying to elevate ourselves and adopt the practices of our ancestors, the part of the challenge is sorting out the way our thinking has been conditioned. Okay. And so I'm framing up the question of what's more important, wisdom versus wealth, only to get you to think about these two concepts. Okay, just to get you to understand, because Orisha lifestyle puts so much emphasis on both. Orisha lifestyle puts so much emphasis on the cultivation of wisdom and the cultivation of wealth, right? There's a great um, proverb that starts off one of the verses of the Erendil Ogun that I love, which is, first, let us get great wisdom, because with great wisdom, we can cure great illness. And by curing great illness, we can acquire great wealth. And with great wealth, we can do great things. But first, let us acquire great wisdom. And so the relationship between wisdom and wealth is baked into our system, and they aren't conceptualized as things that are diametrically in opposition to one another. But what happens is that for people who start practicing Orisha lifestyle, you start seeing the recurring emphasis on these two, and it creates a bit of cognitive dissonance for us. We get a little stuck, and we don't quite know how we're supposed to prioritize, and that's what I'm trying to get around to. Part of my job is to help you prioritize how you go about the proper sequence so that you can enjoy your journey and minimize confusion, chaos, heartbreak, trauma, etc., that come from just not understanding the situation well enough. So within our tradition, wisdom is very, very important. First of all, let us acquire great wisdom. Wisdom is understood, however, to be something beyond knowledge, data, information, right? It isn't that you're trying to outsmart everybody. When you're wise, you're not a know-it-all. That's not what we're talking about when we say acquire great wisdom. I know more than everyone, and I'm constantly trying to prove that I know more than everyone. I'm the smartest one in the room. That isn't what we're talking about with wisdom. When you get to that, that's where you look at characters like Ajakpa, the tortoise. Ajakpa is a folkloric character who the Yoruba use to epitomize the know-it-all, someone who's just too smart for his own good, right? The more he thinks about things and the more he engages his intellect, the more trouble Ajapa creates for himself. And it always, well, not always, but 99% of the time, as smart and brilliant as Ajapa is, as talented as Ajapa is, 99% of the time, all he does is create bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger problems for himself. He's a folk character who brings people back down to earth. You ain't that smart, right? Chill out, right? Wisdom is something else. Wisdom allows us to cure great illness. Wisdom is practical, in other words. Wisdom is a service. Wisdom adds value. When you are wise, you can apply yourself. Your presence is the solution to someone's problem. And because you solve someone's problem, then they thank you, they compensate you. And so acquiring great wealth is a reflection of you adding great value, right? But first, you got to add great value. It's not that you go off, if you talk, the Yoruba will say you're building house with mouth. You can't build a house with mouth, though. Your house is built with your hands, right? So it's about actually doing things that practically solve people's problem, that make life better for people. You're the remedy. You're the solution. You're the strong man whose shoulders that we can lean upon, right? That's what wisdom is. Okay. And so when you acquire that skill or you apply yourself in that way, then people will recognize you. They will celebrate you. They will appreciate you. They will compensate you. They will enrich you, right? And so that's where we start looking at, wisdom does generate money. Okay. But when it comes to wealth, right, when we think about money, we tend to think about wealth. But money is contemporary. Money is right now. Money is what allows you to buy things today. Money allows you to execute. Money is what allows you to make decisions. Money is what creates convenience, right? Money creates convenience. But wealth is like wisdom in that wealth it endures, right? Wealth endures. Wealth is land. Wealth is family. Wealth is children. Wealth is something that generates value and uh it generates value and sustenance over time. Wealth is a renewable resource. Wealth is it's like having a river or a fountain on your property. It continues to yield generation after generation after generation, right? It isn't just money that I have today. It isn't just something that I can buy right now. It's something that is enduring. That's what true wealth has in common with wisdom, which is why we say health is our only wealth, right? Because if you don't have health, then nothing else matters. Our children are our true wealth. The greatest blessing that you can have, according to Ifa, is child. because your child is your legacy. Your child is what will bring, continue your values into perpetuity, right? So these are some of the distinctions between wealth and money, between knowledge and wisdom. They're different. Each one of them is different. They are not in opposition to one another, but they are different. So when you are making decisions, and this is the key to the lesson, when you're making decisions, you're listening to what Ifa tells you, and you're surveying your environment, and you're trying to position yourself according to what Ifa says. Ifa is guiding you towards wisdom, making decisions that will ultimately align you with the path of wisdom, not just the path of knowledge. It's not just about getting enough information to get you around the corner. Sometimes what Ifa is going to tell you today is going to look crazy. That's why I say wisdom looks like madness to the fool, because you can't understand how what I'm doing is right. It looks like I'm taking a loss right now. Why would I do that? Because the day after tomorrow, this is going to yield you something far greater than what you would get by investing in this thing that will produce something for you today. Right? So Ifa is setting you up to make decisions that will align you with wisdom over time. Over time. Likewise, when Ifa is talking to you about making decisions about your finances, and investing money in this and spending money on that, what Ifa is talking about are the things that are going to yield you wealth in the future, over the long run, not just in the future, but over the long haul. Doing something today that's going to be profitable for you in the long run. This is why the distinction is so important, because you got to be able to make that decision between, okay, making a decision and choosing my actions in ways that may not immediately benefit me, or may not be immediately, they may not yield immediately, but I know in the long run what Ifa is inviting me to do is invest in my wisdom and in my wealth, not just in my knowledge and my money. All right. For us in the West, we got to ask ourselves, just think about it. The reason why I'm telling this is because I want you to think about it. Who has been teaching you about wisdom all throughout your life? Where have people been teaching you wisdom? Not fantasy pie in the sky, in the next life kind of stuff, but who has been telling you about, hey, you're you're setting up life for yourself. The one who is lazy in the morning of life is setting himself up for agony in the evening of his life, which means a person who squanders his youth will be very sorrowful in his old age. Who is telling you to prepare for old age? Who is giving you the guidelines to live a fruitful and prosperous and vibrant old age, where you can look and say, I'm so proud to be 80 years old, not to be like I'm 80 years old and I look like I'm 50. What kind of goal is that? Right? That's where we are in the West. I'm 60 years old, but I look like I'm 30. I can still pull a 30-year-old, but I'm 60. No, when I'm 60 years old, when I'm 80 years old, I want to be thinking about, I want you to be telling me about how wise I am. I met a man, his name was Origunwa. He was 80 years old, and the man was wise. That's an accomplishment for a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old man. Not that I look like I'm 50 or 30. I'm 80, I look like I'm 30. That's not valuable, right? Likewise, who's teaching us about wealth? Who's guiding you towards cultivating wealth? Not just having money for right now, being able to, floss and have the things that money can buy right now. I got all the latest gadgetry and stuff. But no, I've invested in my grandchildren, all will have homes, right? My grandchildren will all be poised to take over businesses. Things like that. Where are we getting those kinds of values? If you're like most people, those kinds of teachings and that kind of orientation is really far and few and far between. So The word of Ifa may sound odd to us in the beginning. You might be slow on the uptake to understand why certain decisions are so important. But I want to urge you, apply a different lens. Ifa is telling you to prepare for things that are going to be enduring. They're going to benefit you in the long run. And you can look at it along two tracks, right? You can look at it along two tracks. Ifa is look for how Ifa is guiding you toward the cultivation of wisdom, and look at how Ifa is guiding you toward the cultivation of wealth. If you can do those things and start, tuning up your antennas to see how Ifa is walking you along that path, I guarantee you, every single minute you spend in this tradition will be like heavenly. You'll be so rich. You're going to be so happy month after month, year after year, as you start to realize how you're making investments in your wisdom and your wealth. And so this is a lesson that is particularly valuable and essential for the leaders, because I'm always looking for leaders. I'm looking for people who want to transform the world through positive influence. If you're one of those people, I want you to find out how Obafemi Origunwa and the Orisha Lifestyle Academy can help you take your practice and your life to the highest level possible. Visit me at obafemio.com or orishalifestyle.com. Let's start working together to help you live the medicine that will heal your life and heal the lives of those you are destined to serve. I look forward to working with you. Bye for now. Odabo.